Let's talk about books. Hey, what do you know? It's me, I'm back, blowing the dust off my YouTube channel. I have not been here since the Precambrian era, when there was nothing on YouTube except jellyfish vlogging the primordial soup. But I saw a bunch of people doing the Midyear freakout, and I love that tag so much. It was the first video I ever did on BookTube, and I just got the itch again. So the past couple of years have just been absolute nightmare chaos trash garbage. You know, those lists of the most stressful life events like death, divorce, moving, illness, losing a job, winning the lottery. Yeah, I've had a few of those, and unfortunately, none of them was winning the lottery. But life seems to be calming down, and right now it is like 1,000 degrees in my house because I had to turn off the air so I could record this. So let's move on to the tag. I have read 49 books this year so far, but I DNF'd 8. I DNF a lot of books, so really I've read 41, but I set a yearly goal of 36, so I'm doing pretty well. I'm happy with that. And I have read some absolute bangers, and I want to share them with you. The first question is the best book you've read so far. I think the best book I've read so far is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. It's a memoir. Well, it's not really a memoir because it doesn't cover her whole life. It's an experimental retelling of her romantic relationship with the woman who emotionally and verbally abused her. And it was brilliant and absolutely terrifying. No thriller you read this year will read like this book. I didn't read it when it first came out because I'm not really drawn to authors who are sort of weird, experimental, feminist edgelords. I don't know what I'm saying, for want of a better description, but I really enjoyed both the content and the prose of this. It's not perfect. I gave it 4 stars, but I rarely give anything 5 stars. It does have that like Iowa Writers Workshop, I just got my MFA flavor to it, but nevertheless, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm fascinated by the fact that outsiders will often not believe people when they say they've been abused, and in one sense, victims also have a hard time believing it themselves. You know, they excuse and justify and flip through all the mental gymnastics trying to explain it as if abuse is logical or irrational, or, you know, it's very hard for our little primate brains to understand violence that isn't for survival, I guess, or something. Anyway, I really like the metaphors in this. I like the statistics and the information about domestic abuse among lesbians. The writing is gorgeous, so yeah, definitely pick this up if you have a chance. Best sequel you've read this year so far. I haven't really read any series this year, except one which I DNF'd, but we'll get to that one later. I'm going to finish some series later this year, but I've decided the best way to do that is to read them close together so I can remember what the plot is. New release you haven't read yet but want to. I am dying to read Blood Over Brighthaven. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't really keep up with what's going to be published. Like, I didn't even know that Blood Over Brighthaven had already been released, so I guess I'll have to adjust the question to include another new release that I want to read, which is Knife by Salman Rushdie. It's his memoir about when Iran declared a fatwa and then someone tried to kill him, and I think they stabbed him like 10 or 12 times, multiple times, and then he ended up losing an eye, and it was horrific. And I've wanted to read Salman Rushdie's writing, but I haven't really felt like I had the brain power. So I'm hoping that reading his memoir will propel me into his writing. Number 5, your biggest disappointment. Oh, lads. I hate to even say this. It brought such pain to my heart. I tried to read the Shattered Sea trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I love Joe Abercrombie. The First Law and The Age of Madness are near perfection. 5 stars, and I almost never give 5 stars. Total eclipses happen more frequently than I give 5 stars. So I was thinking, of course, that anything by Joe Abercrombie is going to be a banger. I read Half a King, and it was very diluted Abercrombie. It was as if I went to visit Joe Abercrombie and I could see the warm light in the window. I could hear snatches of conversation, but Joe never came to the door. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a little fluke. And then I picked up the next book, Half a World, and I ended up DNFing it. Did you hear me? I DNF'd Abercrombie. And then I filled my pockets with rocks and walked into the sea. The end. So let us move on from this trauma to question number 6. What is your biggest surprise of the year? I read Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. I had seen the hype of my year of rest and relaxation, and I just didn't think Ottessa Moshfegh's books would contain anything that would interest me. You know, as with Machado, who I mentioned a few questions earlier, I am not really interested in dipping my feet into the postmodern swamp. I'm not fond of books that make me feel oogie. But I saw a couple of booktubers gush about Moshfegh, and I am a sucker for enthusiasm. So I thought I would pick up her debut novel, Eileen, and oh Lord, talk about feeling oogie. Eileen is a book about a miserable woman living a miserable life. She thinks miserable thoughts and she does miserable deeds. The end. She's telling us her story as an old woman, and I don't know if she's a reliable narrator or not, because at the end of this denigrating tale, she tells us a couple of times how happy she is now and how deeply she loves and what a great life she has and how it's so full of people. And part of me was like, yeah, I doubt it, babe. Anyway, that's a very minor thing. I don't even know why I'm mentioning it. Has nothing to do with the plot. But anyway, I don't like to feel like I need to take a shower after reading a book, but this was so well done. I was like, fine, just chew me up and spit me out, Ottessa. Just whatever. And it was a debut novel. And normally I do not like debuts. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It had some pacing problems. But if you don't mind feeling like the floor of a subway station, I recommend Eileen. It's not for everybody, but surprisingly, it was for me. Number 7. Favorite new author debut or new to you? I read Caroline O'Donoghue's The Rachel Incident, and I loved it. Irish literature is just chef's kiss. I think she's a great writer, and I was really moved by the book in ways I didn't expect, including tearing up toward the end of the book. The relationships in this are pure gold, my friends. And Rachel Joyce is another author I stumbled on, and I read The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry and really enjoyed that. So I've had some great new to me authors this year. Question 8. Newest fictional crush. I have not read many books with decent human beings in them, so I am going to have to skip this question. Number 9. Newest favorite character. I can't really say she's a favorite character, but a character I liked very much was Sally from Strange Sally Diamond. I really respected the way that she pursued growth and was just trying to create the best life she could despite her circumstances, trying to learn and figure things out. I really liked that part of the book. Number 10, a book that made you cry. Well, I said before that the Rachel incident made me tear up, but not because it was sad, but just because I wasn't expecting the ending, and it got me. Number 11, a book that made you happy. I read Tom Mitchell's The Penguin Lessons. It's a nonfiction, it's a memoir. It's about Tom Mitchell, who's visiting South America when he's younger, like in the 60s or something. I don't know. And he's walking on the shores on the beach in, I think, Uruguay, and there's been an oil spill, and there are all these penguins there that are dead. Sorry, that's not the happy part. The happy part is that he finds a penguin that's alive, so he sneaks it into the apartment he's staying in, and he washes all the oil off, and then he sneaks it back out of the apartment and tries to release it back into the ocean, but it won't go. And he doesn't know this at the time, but penguins need another penguin to travel with. You know, they're not solitary. So this penguin will not leave him, and then he literally follows him home. And then it's just about their adventures together, and it was both interesting and very wholesome. Number 12, most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. I am a library girl, and if I buy a book, it's generally an audiobook. So I've only bought a couple books this year, and neither one was particularly fetching. Number 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I want to read more nonfiction, but I have to be really deliberate about picking up nonfiction. So I'd like to read maybe 8, if that's not too ambitious. That's probably too ambitious. Anyway, I'd like to read some nonfiction books before the end of the year. I have about 3 series I want to finish. I have about 4 classics I'd like to give a second chance to. Books I either DNF'd or I finished them, but I didn't like them or maybe even hated them. So I'd like to try again and see if we get on better the second time around. So that is it for me. Tell me what you're reading. Tell me something non-book related that you're looking forward to. I am glad you're here, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.